Welcome to SRG Insights, where we answer your questions about sales, sales management, and sales training. And today's question is,
Recently, we had a customer call us and tell us they liked our solution, but they are about to sign with a competitor. Since we were not properly engaged, we did not give them the pricing and they closed the contract with the competitor. What would you have done? We often talk to developers who ask us about our pricing for our solutions when they don't even have the budget for sponsoring a lunch. How would we handle pricing questions prematurely?
well, thank you for that question. And actually, I think there are a couple of really interesting points that are packaged up in there. And specifically the question about when do you disclose pricing in the sales process, and can we appropriately qualify the budget earlier on to avoid wasting time? But I'd like to consider, I guess, a couple of questions as we break that down that might help us determine how to continue. And the first is really, are they serious about engaging with us and considering us as a partner? What I mean by that is often in sales, it seems like the sales professional ends up doing all of the work. Send me this information, send me this pricing, put this proposal together, and then I may or may not get back to you, or I may just actually be considering you as another column on my spreadsheet so that when I make the evaluation, I feel better about that decision. So I think we really need to put some actions back on the prospect or the customer and see if we can get them to engage and respond in a bit of a give and take. So what I mean by that is if we're going to provide that pricing information, I might put a couple of stipulations around it. For instance, I'm happy to give you that pricing information, but it wouldn't really be appropriate for me to do that at this point without further discussion about your priorities and your needs and really understanding the impact of this problem is having on your organization and the impact the solution will actually provide. So what I'd like to request is just a 15 to 30 minute conversation to really understand those needs better before I provide that pricing. And then after I do, I'd like the opportunity to present our proposal to your executive team. And so I think this does a couple of things for us. It lets us know just how serious they are they willing to engage, and a little bit of give and take. And the third tactic, and I learned this from a mentor long ago, is to really redefine the rules of engagement a bit. So find out about the timeline and the decision-making process, and then ask for an extension. So we might say, we're happy to do that, but we need a little bit more time to thoughtfully prepare our response and our pricing. So we'd request a week-long extension. This does a really interesting thing. If they already have somebody in mind and they're really just using us to fill out the RFP responses, then they're likely not to give us that extension. And I think that tells us that our time might be better well spent focusing on new prospects and new opportunities and maybe getting ahead of the decision-making process next time instead of being at that point where they're already considering our competitor and ready to make a decision. If they give us the extension, great, then we can have that meeting, we can further understand the requirements and put together a more thoughtful proposal. So I think another question we'd really want to understand is, what's the pricing for? Do we fully understand those requirements? And I don't just mean maybe an RFI or RFP, but have we had a chance to have a discussion and dialogue with the customer to get to that next level and really help them develop the need and understand that pain in a way that we can help position our solution as a way to uniquely solve it. Again, unless we've had those conversations, I don't think it probably makes sense to proceed at that point. We're better off, frankly, getting those types of opportunities out of our pipeline sooner and focusing on those that we really think that we can close. The final piece I will mention, though, is I think around BANT, and we've all heard about that in terms of budget, authority, the need, and timing. Looking at budget, I think it is important to say, well, can you help me understand your budget decision process? Do you have budget already allocated, or is budget something you're going to go after? And will the pricing influence that, or are you actually at the point of making the decision and this is just a checkpoint moving forward? Because again, I think if they don't have budget set aside, if they haven't already allocated it, and we're not engaged at the decision maker level, then the chances of us really winning that opportunity are probably pretty slight at that point. And again, this mentor used to share the words, bad news early is good news. So let's think about that and see if we can't find out if there's bad news, disqualify that opportunity and move on something that might be more appropriate. Thank you very much.